Is this better if I've done that right this time? With the microphone? Are you sure though?
Okay, so I racked my brains a little bit for this one. And so, what's the question again? Just slap him across the face.
Okay, so
The first thing that came up was Batman Arkham Asylum. When that came out, I was really looking forward to it. I played through the campaign, loved it, but it was the challenge modes that really sort of engrossed me. I wanted to be the very best around in those scenarios, but I am not really the best around. So I had to look up YouTube sort of walkthroughs of how to be really good and how to do these challenge modes the most efficiently, because you had like sort of stealth scenarios where you got plopped into a map and you had to take all the guys out, hit criteria and do it as fast as possible. You could get on the leaderboard, and I wanted to get on the leaderboard. So I looked over a few hints of how to do this, and I ended up being 5th in the whole world on this leaderboard. This admittedly was a few weeks after it came out, so there wasn't that many people playing it. There was a couple 100,000, but I was still so proud of it, and I even put it in. You know when you had Xbox Live and you had sort of like your little gamer tag thing, you had your little bio, I put it in there, 5th in the world on Arkham Asylum, and just, you know, FYI, I was also top 50 on one of them in Arkham City. But in Arkham Asylum, top 5, had it in my bio, was so proud of it. Obviously, when you put something like that in your bio and your friends see it, they just rip the piss out of you for a long, long time. And my biggest achievement was conflated with the biggest punching bag that my friends had for me at the time, because they just would not let that go. But you know, I was 5th in the world, so who had the last laugh? They did. They still joke about it today, to be honest.
My biggest video game achievement actually isn't one that's necessarily in-game, it's one that kind of just happened in this game of real life that we all play. And basically, I used to work as the head of sales and marketing for a language department back in the day. And I wasn't really too happy there. My parents were just sort of like, they didn't really seem to mind. They were just like, you know, keep plugging ahead at it, you'll find what you want to do at some point. And in this, in the meantime, I'd started editing videos, doing gaming stuff and things like that. And my dad never really got it, but my mum was always just kind of like, oh, that's cool. But it was just that sort of like friendly sort of passing the time thing. But then the moment came when I was able to actually step up, and I got a job here at WhatCulture, or at least a trial. And I said to my mum, this would involve me like moving away and like, you know, changing everything, because I'd always lived very close to home. And she just looked at me and she was just like, you've got to do this. Like, it's just, you have to do this because I can see that you're really passionate about it. And she used this thing where she just goes, I get it. I understand what it is. It's that. It's not working in a bank, and it's not working in a, well, you know, for like a massive corporation sort of thing. It's doing what you want to do, and that is gaming. And so it was just that moment when I was just like, cool, this isn't just what I want to do. This is now got the support of my parents and all the other things. So I was like, yeah, this is definitely it. And I know it's quite funny because I spent a lot of time talking about your mums, but yeah, now I'm actually sharing a real story about mine. Whew, talk about opening yourself up on that one. But yeah, so that is probably my proudest moment, when I actually got the nod, as it were, from my mum to go and actually make a tit out of myself on YouTube. So yeah, that's it.
So mine would be something kind of a blend between actual gameplay and also a real life like twist on it. So I spoke about playing on the Mega Drive a lot growing up before, and this comes back to that. I met my best friend when I was 4. So we've been best friends for nearly 20 years now. And every week after school I'd go to his, and most of the time we'd be playing something, be it like Mario Kart Double Dash or Sonic Adventure 2 or Streets of Rage on the Mega Drive. And Streets of Rage is obviously an amazing game, and when you get to the end of it, there's a point where I think Mr. X gives you an ultimatum. Obviously we're playing in 2-player, and he gives you the ultimatum, but each player can choose a separate response to this ultimatum. It's like join me or die or something. And depending on how each of you answer depends on what happens next. So if you both say yes, both say yes, he forces you to fight each other. You have to kill one of each, kill one another, and then the last one standing wins. If you both say no, he becomes the final boss and you actually attack him. If one of you says yes and one of you says no, he sends you back about halfway through the game. You have to play back through the latter half of the game to get back to him to answer the same question again. But because we've been playing it for so long, and there's only a couple of times growing up we actually got to that final boss, we never could remember what the right thing to answer was. So, and that was when we got there, which was never the case because I was terrible at Streets of Rage growing up. I'm not gonna lie, my friend hated the fact that I'd always kill him and kick him and stuff. But, you know, God knows how many years later, must have been about 15 years later, 14, 15 years later, it's the day before I moved to Coventry to go to university. And we go out to the pub, me and him and a bunch of our friends, and then we go back to his afterwards, and we end up playing Streets of Rage. And after like 15 years, for the last day we were both in our home village together, we beat it for the first time. We've beaten it again since. Like whenever we meet up, we play it again and we know exactly what to do when we get to the final boss, but the fact that it took us 14 years to beat it in the first place probably sounds like a really scrubby thing to say. But to us, I don't know, it was like that kind of point where we were like, okay, that's this portion of our lives over, because this is when we were both moving away and stuff. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest things that stuck out to me for gaming, really, was beating Streets of Rage for the first time with my best friend after 14 years.
So with my thing, like, it's a mix because gaming achievements, obviously there's all sorts of stuff that you can pick from games, and whether that's like Guitar Hero and being, you know, learning to master expert mode and using the orange frets, or whether it's beating a boss or whatever. But if you start thinking of like overall, what do video games mean to you? What's your biggest gaming achievement and all that kind of thing? All that rolls together for me in like a career-based thing. Because when you say you want to get into this industry and you start like trying to do something relating to living off your words, I went through uni and tried to get into music and music coverage, and I bought equipment and camera equipment, and I would go down to gigs. I would basically just email bands and be like, hey, can I talk to you? Can I interview you? I want to put you on my website, which meant nothing. And can I please talk to you, and do that kind of thing. And just like kind of slogged through music coverage for the majority of university life. A couple of years, met a lot of bands, met a lot of people. It was great, but you're just not going to get anywhere. You'll be voice in the crowd when it comes to music coverage. And so I kind of like met like my fiance, and she was like, well, you clearly play a lot of games and you're living on them whilst listening to the music. Why don't you switch and try and do game coverage? And I was just kind of like, it just was one of those like light bulb moments. And so for me, the biggest achievement was like the first time I got paid to cover something officially, because like when you start doing this, especially if you're like a freelancer or whatever, like, you know, you might come across like getting some money for like coverage, but it's not like a monthly paycheck. It's not like, I don't know, for me I was like, well, I want it to be this like official statement thing. And so for me, I managed to like switch gears and write for a couple of websites online, but it was just PayPal payments. And then obviously with like WhatCulture, like everything kind of just took off more, and all of a sudden I was writing like properly and full time. And so that was one part of it. But it kind of all came full circle, and I guess this is the biggest thing. Not to be like too vain about it, but it was just like when we realized that we had like a bit of a following, like one of the first times that we ever got like recognized. And it was like, even back when it was like me, Ben and Peter, when we were over at Gamescom, or like when it's like I'm on like a train somewhere and someone's like, oh my God, it's you from WhatCulture. And like we have like a couple of conversations. Like it's not about, it's not to make it all about me, but it's really cool to go like through all those years and then be like, actually, you get paid to do this and it's insane, but I get to live off the fact that I have a huge passion for games and always have, and that's kind of, it just kind of fell together in like a really cool way. So yeah, but also playing Dragon Force is really hard, so like, yeah, don't ever think that it's not.
My biggest gaming achievement is in a little game called Demon's Souls. Okay, this game is the weirdest mix of, like, the bosses are surprisingly easy at times. There's one or two that are quite difficult. F you, King Alant. And there's some that are really, really easy. But the Platinum Trophy, if you want to get all the trophies in the game, one trophy is for collecting all the weapons, another one, I believe a separate one, is for collecting all the rings. And to do those, you need to play around with what's called World Tendency. Now this is a piece of bullshit that they thankfully took out of the following Souls games. Cheers for that, FromSoft. So what it is you can have pure white world tendency and pure black world tendency. You can also have pure white character tendency, pure black character tendency. It is complicated AF, okay? And you actually need to, I'm not ashamed to say I had to look up a guide on how it actually worked. Still a big achievement to me though, because I actually managed it. What it means is if you want to keep your world in pure white tendency, you need to go from one boss to the next through a whole area, which potentially can be quite terrifying, without dying. Because if you die once in human form, that's it. You're going straight back towards black tendency. You won't get that weapon that you can only get in pure white tendency. So yeah, TLDR version. Yeah, the Demon's Souls Platinum was pretty hard. Got it though. closing thoughts basically on this platinum is it took me over 150 hours. There is one weapon upgrade that took me a very long time to get. My Demon Souls boys, pure blade stone. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And what this platinum taught me was to never give up. Because wow, did I really want to give up and just say, F it. But no, kept at it, kept my cool, kept calm, didn't rage quit. Do you know what, guys? You follow your dreams, because, you know, keep at it, never give up, you can do it. Well, since I've got the biggest balls in this room, I'm going to say I actually got an actual achievement. Don't put that in.